Hi everyone, hello from Singapore. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's event on AI disrupting flavor and ingredient innovation, organized by SGInnovate and AI Palette. My name is Jody from SGInnovate, and for those of you who may be more new to us, SGInnovate is a Singapore government-owned organization that invests in and helps build deep tech startups, talent, and community. We have the mission to build deep tech innovations from Singapore and for the world. Today, we have brought together a panel of food industry innovators to share their ways in successfully adopting AI in flavor and ingredient innovation. Through understanding their first-hand experiences of their needs, initial expectations, and journey in adopting AI for the industry, we hope that you enjoy today's session. Without further ado, I'd now like to pass the time over to our moderator for today, Som, who is the CEO and co-founder of AI Palette, for him to introduce himself and our esteemed panelists. Som, please.
Thanks, Jody. I'm Som, the co-founder and CEO of AI Palette. At AI Palette, we help the food and beverage companies with their new product innovation using the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'll be your moderator for today evening, and along with me, I have the esteemed panelists: Chik Liang Tan, Product Line Innovation and Marketing Director, Texturizers and Specialties at APAC Cargill; Maria Cotten, Head Consumer Sensory Insights Asia Pacific at Givaudan; Maria Galindo, Associate Principal Scientist, Consumer Science at Mondelez International; and last but not the least, Daniel Hitz, Vice President, Business Development at Olam Food Ingredients. Flavors and ingredients are an integral key component of the products that we consume every day. The traditional process of innovation is heavily dependent on human inputs during the different stages. So in terms of looking into innovation, we can probably look at through two primary lenses for the application of AI. First one, consumer driven, and the second one, formulation and technology driven. So I would love to know from the panelists, maybe starting with Daniel, followed by Chik Liang, how your organization is seeing the role of AI in changing the ingredient innovation process.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it has changed. Okay, first of all, I guess what I have to make clear is that I'm looking at this from a commercial perspective, mainly because I look after business development. So for me and for our operation, AI has become a viable tool in terms of understanding end user markets. And I mean, we're in a B2B space. So traditionally our customers are other FMCG manufacturers, etc. But obviously taking that one step further is that we're looking at the end user, in other words, the consumer, which ends up consuming some of those products. And we need to understand their need space and what the trends are that are developing in the consumer space. So for us, it's become a lens through which we can look at, you know, what the upcoming movement is, what the trend is, and then we can go about developing solutions that we can then offer to our customers in the B2B space, which in turn they then can use to create new products, etc. So it's really taking the focus off our original customer base, but one step further to the consumer, to really getting some insights on what they're thinking, how they're feeling, what is possibly coming up shortly, or you know, what's trending.
How about you, Chik Liang?
Thanks, Som. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would second what Daniel just said. Really, understanding more on the consumer. It's a tool that helps us understand more on the consumer. I'll add one more point though, and it is that AI allows for us to understand this real time. Yeah. Typically, as we look at our other, tools to help us understand the market, we find that we are receiving market reports or market understanding that is probably a little late, a little laggy, 6 months later, 12 months later, and that basically means that, consumers are already moving on to something else, or our customers are already already innovating on that, yeah, already focusing on it, yeah. And so, having AI, in our toolbox here allows for us to get this consumer insight real time, right? Understanding, for example, what is the Indonesian consumer thinking about yogurt today, yeah, and what's driving the consumption going forward. So that's really very important. As we look at AI in Cargill, quite often, we see that, for example, food service trends actually innovate faster than CPG trends. And so we're able to, through AI, get inspiration from understanding what's trending from consumers in social media, in home recipes, in e-commerce channels, and AI with the ability to crunch a massive amount of data allows us to see what's big sooner and faster, right? And and in that event, become a very useful tool in helping our customers, become our customers' partner and building concepts going forward.
Thanks for that. So it's really great to see that how the technology is enabling you to really partner with your customers and helping them in taking some of the key strategic decisions. Now, I would like to go over to Marike to hear from her perspective how a leading flavor house like Givaudan is looking at AI.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I'm Marika. My company Givaudan is like the previous speaker's a business-to-business company. So basically, what we want to make sure is that the products that we develop is right for our customers, and that is the consumer, right? So what we typically tend to do is we help our customers understand the food experiences that their consumers are looking for. So what do they enjoy? Why do they enjoy it? What are their needs? How are these needs evolving? Are they facing any dilemmas or pain points? How can we try to solve those through product innovation? What are their sensory expectations? And I can say that more and more we are using digital tools in the company, digital tools for the next generation of product development. And there's perhaps two tools that I can tell you a little bit more about. One is the Aroma Kiosk, and that is actually our latest addition to our so-called digital ecosystem. That is a tool that allows us to co-create and connect with consumers in dynamic environments. So it's kind of like a phone booth. So imagine a phone booth, which has a television screen, which has a device in there, the fast air technology, that diffuses different aromas that consumers can smell real time. And there's an AI, a machine learning in there that helps to predict what consumers prefer to smell. So once we know the preferred smells, we are then able to translate that to taste using also artificial intelligence. And we do that with ATOM. So ATOM stands for Advanced Tools for Modeling. And we use that, we use artificial intelligence in there. It's built over, I would say, maybe 20 years of research. And we use that to optimize food and formulation, but also to facilitate co-creation with our customers. So these two tools, Aroma Kiosk and ATOM, we use increasingly more in product development, and it's helping us to reduce the usual processes of trial and error, I would say, and also to speed up our product development, because it's helping us to predict consumer preferred blends of ingredients for our products.
Flavor creation is probably one of the most difficult creation, because a lot of it is also perceptions, and consumers are not always able to articulate what they want. And it's really amazing to see like how technology is playing a role here in terms of translating the consumer needs into flavor creation. So it was really interesting to see how the B2B companies are using AI to be closer to their customer, that is the consumers. Now, I would love to hear from Maria, like how a brand like Mondelez is looking at AI.
Yes, thank you. And yes, good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to participate in this panel. We will be in the customer side. And of course, same as, the other panelists, we are really consumer-centric in Mondelez, and understanding consumers, their needs, the trends in the market will be our priority. And that's how I think AI has helped us, drive that consumer-centric agenda. I think the biggest change that we've seen is efficiencies from time perspective, cost perspective, and real-time feedback, as Chick mentioned. It's something that machines can do very well, more than us, maybe humans at some point. And it's, it just contributes to our new product development process. We have now shorter, times to create a new product, to understand what's going on in the market, to integrate data a lot better. I think right now we're in a stage where a lot of data is being generated, and AI is helping us make that data actionable, right? And uncover trends and design products, in our case, that can truly be enjoyed by our consumers. So it's been really adding value in that sense for us to stay close to our consumers in the digital world.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. And to all the wonderful audience who has joined us today, there is a Q&A section. Please, if you have any questions, put them over there, and I'll ask the panelists about them towards the end. Now, in terms of using the AI, what is the impact that you have seen? So Maria, if you can share, I don't know if any particular product or some sort of other phases where you have seen a direct impact.
I would say that for us, the biggest impact, I mean, in Mondelez, we've been looking at application of AI for a few years now. And I think AI is part of our everyday lives now, right? And it's part of consumers' everyday life too. So it's already here. And the biggest impact is been providing business continuity last year with COVID, where we weren't able to be face-to-face with our consumers. The use of AI and digital tools helped us stay close and relevant with them. And I think that's one of the biggest contributions so far of, being really on the lead here on the AI and embedding these tools into what we do. And I think in terms of, product development through our brands, we've been using this broadly to understand, I think, as I said, what consumers really care about, and helping us react faster too, and adapt to the changes in the market. So after, the pandemic, I think with AI prove itself, the value it brings and how important it is for business and everyone to be on top of it.
Great. That's a wonderful example of how AI really helped during the period of pandemic to maintain the business continuity. Daniel, if you can share what is the impact that you have seen in terms of usage of AI in your organization?
Yeah, sure. I guess from a direct internal impact, what I've noticed more than anything, and maybe this has been partly due to the current environment in terms of the pandemic, we've, as a group, as a team, as a business, have learned to work together far closer. And by that, what I mean is that the commercial front of the business connected significantly stronger with the R&D and the application development side of the business. And that was facilitated by using an AI tool that allowed us to really get some insights into the market trends. And as Chick mentioned, real-time actual information, giving us a very clear picture of what the consumer is feeling and thinking and where it's heading. And so with that sort of information, the engagement within the organization became much stronger. It was nearly like a bigger bridge has been built between R&D and commercial, and that's brought the team together. And I think I'm not alien by saying that quite often in large organizations there tends to be some gaps between the commercial front and the R&D in the back for many different reasons, which I think we all know. But this has really brought it closer for us, and we work much closer together now on finding solutions and applications, and therefore the speed to market has increased for us. And so, you know, that which we all know these days is essential to get something new to the market very quickly. So yeah, it's been a very positive impact.
That's a very interesting application of AI that we had, like when it not just helped you in understanding the consumer, but also to bring the organization together and put them in the same level, because I guess data speaks for itself, and when data speaks, everybody has to agree to the data.
Yeah.
Marike, would you like to share some example of some of the impacts that you have seen in terms of your usage of AI?
Yeah, sure. I think internally, you know, we have been using AI for a while when it comes to formula creation and product development, and that engagement has always been super high. I think, you know, our company has a lot of scientists, so by default, I guess people are interested in those kind of technologies. Also, when the example of the Aroma Kiosk that I just gave, you know, we have been setting that up in shopping malls, especially pre-COVID, of course, and most recently, luckily, also in China. And that is has created a lot of excitement with our customers, but also internally, because it's almost like a crowdsourcing. You know, consumers go to the kiosk in a mall, they smell the different aroma profiles, they rate how much they like them. And then the data is then translated into personalized flavor preferences using like an AI algorithm. And that is all happening in real time. So that is creating a lot of excitement. But I also think we are also using AI more through the consumer lens, where we built a platform to help us predict ingredient trends. And that is really changing people's mindsets, because suddenly, instead of going directly to the consumer and commissioning a survey or any other type of research, you're actually taking a big data approach, where you look at a lot of data and try to understand the data to then predict trends from it and certain patterns. And that is a mindset that, you know, is needed to change in people to look at it from a different way, and to maybe not see directly manifestations of those products into the market, because you are predicting something. So it's not necessarily that you already see that product in the marketplace. And that is, you know, it's creating excitement, but also a little bit of discomfort, like, oh, we're predicting something in the future, right? But it's not there yet. So yeah, it's kind of like a change management that's, you know, our teams are going through. So that would be the impact for us.
Right. So Chick, how has been the impact in Cargill?
Yes, thanks, Som. Well, pretty similar in what has been mentioned by Daniel, Maria, and Marike. First of all, it helps us with relevance to our customers. Yeah, you know, we are a food ingredients producer, and so when we come to our customers, we want to bring innovative and on-trend concepts. Yeah, and you know, the more innovative they are, the more insightful these things are. The understanding of the category is. It helps us to, you know, unlock our relationship with customers and unlock growth, because, you know, we help our customers to grow. And so AI has been helpful in helping us do that, you know, increasing our relevance and, you know, providing sharper concepts. Yeah. One typical example, let me get a little bit granular. What do you mean by understanding the consumer? You know, oftentimes when we think about trends, let's say plant-based, it's pretty hard to quantify when a trend is emerging, when a trend is, you know, truly nascent, or when a trend is actually, you know, really on that big trajectory. Yeah, and using AI, we're able to quantify the ramp up of these trends. Yeah, is it, and why can we do that? It's because we're able to track mentions, and by tracking mentions, we're able to see whether the product is truly trending or not. Yeah, or is it just you know, marketing reports saying so? Yeah. And so the ability to quantify it allows us to make judgments on resources, right? Should we work on this product versus that product? Should we prioritize differently? So it makes decision making, and a lot clearer, and it helps in that with our within our R&D organizations as well as with our customers. Second point is what I'll echo with what Maria says about around efficiency. Yeah, typically to get such an information, you would require to go to marketing agencies, you would do your own consumer surveys, and that's going to be pretty difficult during COVID. And you'll be spending quite a bit of money there, right? And then you have to, get an analyst to churn things on the findings. And so AI is a bit of a shortcut here and a bit of a technological leap here in helping us to do that. Yeah. So from that angle, it has changed the way we operated within our company. So.
Yeah, that's a very wonderful example again, like where you are using the predictive capability of AI in terms of identifying where you should be putting your investment, and also in terms of planning better where you should go. And that's where technology can really make the difference versus the way things were done in a traditional way. So thanks for sharing that instance. So Marike, while answering the last question, you touched a little bit on the change management. And when it comes to adapting new technology like AI, which is a very fundamentally different approach of looking at things versus what people are used to, would love to hear from you, like how has you managed in terms of some of the challenges that you have faced in terms of using AI and applying AI?
Okay, well, one of the examples that I can give is when we built a new platform to predict trends. We did it in 2 different countries. In one country, we kind of started with a very small team, and then got the rest of the people to join and explain how we worked and how it could benefit the teams. And that didn't necessarily work very well because people were not involved with it from the beginning. And when we launched the platform in another country, we actually said, we're going to let's set up a builder team and let's set up a user team. And the builder team is going to be really building that together from different functions and kind of like the ambassadors to also show other team members how the tool is being built and how it works. And that worked a lot better to really involve key people from the beginning, instead of developing it in a really, really small team and then rolling it out. So that was one of the big learnings that we had. I also think, other challenges are maybe, the different mindset that you have to look at big data, but also the unknown, so kind of like the fear of people that they think, oh, now that we use AI and machine learning, is my job going to be redundant, or do I still have a right to play, let's say? And what we are actually saying is that we use these kind of digital tools to be able to even do more and to grow our business and, to focus efforts that need a lot of manual thinking and, in other occasions. So it's never gonna reduce the need for our people. It's actually the opposite.
Thanks a lot for sharing that particular example. I think for anybody who is listening here and thinking about adopting AI in their organization, there are some very useful pointers that we can use in terms of how to manage the change management when it comes to more around the user and the human aspect to it. Maria, can you share some of your experience in terms of some of the challenges that you might have faced?
Yes, I think what's important here and was part of the challenges was truly understanding the limitations of the technology, because I think everyone gets really excited about applying AI. It's the buzzword, everyone wants to do it, but being very critical about how the technology is going to help you and where maybe a traditional method will do a better job. So I think we had to be very open about that in those conversations, and we took every opportunity as a learning opportunity. You have to take some risks when you want to do something different, right? And I think the organization in our case was very open to do so. Reflect, learn, and be very critical about, is this something that is truly adding value or not? And I feel that's the challenging part. Taking the risk and then coming back maybe with not very good news, but a lot of learnings, and using that to shape a better maybe future on how to move forward with the use of technology. It is a learning curve. Many of the AI concepts are very new, and actually algorithms and all these can be quite complex for majority of your organization to understand. Bringing your team up to that level where everyone's comfortable using it, understands the benefits but also the limitations, I think has been one of the biggest challenges. And I think it's setting up success in the future of this type of technologies, being very critical about when to use it and when not. It's been for us, I think. And the other one I thought about was finding the right external partners. That's so critical, because in Mondelez we rely on that, and we like to collaborate and have these open collaborations and discussions with our partners to find better solutions. So in the process of trying new things, you have good experiences and not so good. We've been very lucky. We have very good partners, and understanding that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are many good technical companies out there doing great things. And so I think that's also been kind of one of the challenging parts. Open to fail, learn, and adapt.
Right. That's a very good framework that you have mentioned. And I completely agree. And I have also seen it that one of the failures of adoption of AI is in terms of people don't know what to expect from AI. So even when we work with some of our customers, we spend a lot of time in terms of expectation management. Because AI, people partly have that impression that it's the answer to everything. It is that magic lamp which will give you whatever you want. But that's not the case. Chick, how about you? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, very similar to what has been mentioned so far, but I'll add on a few more points. I think with our adoption journey, right, it also comes down to being, raising our internal team's level to be able to ask the right questions. Yeah, with an ingredients company, the perspective is slightly different. With a consumer-facing company, a FMCG company like Mondelez, the perspectives are slightly different. The questions are slightly different. Yeah, and AI in a way has a social media listening component, whereby there's a lot of dragging in of information. But as you listen, you need to know what to listen for. You need to know what you're trying to answer, yeah, and then set it up, right? And so it comes down to, I would say, multiple questions, yeah, before the final decision is made about a direction to head. And with that multiple questions, the teams need to understand what the algorithm looks like, and what the technology limitations are. Yeah, and in some ways, put it simply, you may need someone that's a little bit more marketing, but also a little bit more technical, right? In order to bridge that. Yeah, sometimes having good external parties will help here, and so that's one way to get around this. Yeah, but as we build this, as others are in the audience are looking to build this internally, that's the struggle that can happen. Yeah, in many ways. My second point here is I think going forward in the future with greater concerns around privacy, data privacy on the internet. These days when I got my latest phone, there were a lot of questions about would you allow this app to track you? yeah, and things like that. I see also increasingly regulations coming into play, yeah, and that's where AI, technology will be challenged in some way, yeah, not entirely, not disrupted, but challenged in some way in order to get the insights that it's getting today. Yeah, so to some extent, the future can be a little bit unclear going forward. I see that.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And also, one of the important things that you rightly mentioned is that the user should have a technological bent of mind so that they can bridge the gap between the business side and also the technical side. Daniel, what have been the challenges that you faced?
Well, I mean, some of the challenges go back to those what Marika and Maria said. It's really about, there's a hesitation about something like AI initially within a business, because it seems too fantastic to be true. It allows you to give you somewhat of an insight into what may be in the future, right? And that all sounds, for a lot of people, that sounds like, yeah, we've heard all this before, and this is a good marketing ploy, etc., etc. So I think, the challenges has really been to get everyone on board to understand what this means. And yes, it has extraordinary capability, and it really is a fantastic tool, but it can't be used in isolation. It needs to be used in a combination. And for me, there's probably three parts to this. I mean, there's syndicated market intelligence, then there is our internal experiential intelligence, and then we have a digital piece, and within that digital piece sits AI. And if you put those three together, you get a holistic approach to understanding what the market is doing and where it's heading. And that helps explain to a lot of stakeholders that, yes, it is a fantastic tool, but no, we're not going to base every decision that we're making on just this tool going forward. But it adds a missing piece or several missing pieces to an equation that allows us to, make decisions that make commercial sense, and decisions that can be turned into profit-making exercises, which at the end of the day is what we're about within businesses. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, some of the biggest challenges were really about getting everyone on board and explaining, taking the time to get them to understand what does it mean, and what is the real benefit versus the fantastical idea of, yes, this will solve all our problems and make us the leader in everything. So yeah.
Yeah, great to see that you are able to convince the stakeholders and have AI as part of the organizational strategy. So here is a question from the audience, which I feel may be the right time to ask it right now. A lot of AI tools are coming into the market now. As early adopters of AI technology, what advice do you have on how to evaluate the solutions? Maybe Maria, you can go first, as you already talked about like evaluating different solutions. And after that, if anybody wants to add, please do so.
Yes, I think it's very important to understand the objectives that you have within your project and your organization. Understand, as I said, the benefits and limitations of the tool, and try it. I mean, that's the best way to learn. Maybe take a little bit of risk of trying something new to test if it works, and have a clear reference of what success is like. Okay, have clear understanding of what's going to be your action standard, for that technology. In terms of time, investment, quality of the data, the conclusions that you're able to make from it. And I think it is truly case by case, because there's so many AI solutions at the moment that it's hard to just give you one recommendation there. And many of the solutions are very customized, at least in our case. Okay, so just make sure that you truly understand what's the problem that you're trying to solve, so that you can get to the right tool, and then be very critical about what success is going to be like for your organization. it will be my advice. Not sure if the others have any other comment.
Yeah, I think I would second that. I mean, I really understanding that there's no one tool that fixes all, and that you really need to understand from the onset what is it that you're looking for, and what is the end result in applying a tool like this, and then that'll give you, probably a good set of boxes to tick in terms of what you're going to choose. How flexible is it? Is it adaptable to your environment? Can it address some of the particular issues that you might need addressing for your business, etc. So yeah, I think it's it's not unlike buying a car. Make sure it does what you need it to do. It suits your purpose. So I don't think there's one single tool out there that'll address everyone's needs. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I also agree with that. It's not a magic ball, AI. Like it still needs a lot of collaboration with the partner that you're working together with. Like Maria already mentioned, is usually customized to the way you work and the way you understand your consumers and the way you develop your products. So it needs a very tight collaboration. And yeah, that would be my advice. Always collaborate very closely and have people in your team that are really eager to understand how it works, but that also can communicate to the rest of the team the value of it, and don't be afraid to try it and to fail, because it is, it is often a little bit of a trial and error, and it's okay to not get it right the first time.
Some very important nuggets of information over here. And even when we work with some of the companies, we have seen that the most successful collaborations are the one where there is an equal involvement from both the sides. And also from the outset, everybody knew what success looks like, what to expect out of that collaboration. There is another interesting question that has come up. We can see from the discussion from the panelists is that the data from the consumers is being analyzed. And can somebody share about a particular use case where that information was used for specifically for innovation or a product development? So the data that came from the consumers and was analyzed using AI, how was it used to ultimately create an end product? Anybody wants to take a stab at it?
I guess I'm happy to talk about something, but I won't be overly specific for obvious reasons. But I mean, we went through an exercise in specifically looking at pairing, in other words, fusion of flavors, where, what type of flavors, whether they're East or West type flavors that are coming together, creating fusion products. And this was specifically in the snack seasoning arena. And we successfully used an AI tool to gather sufficient data to understand that, people were pairing up, this was in a specific part of Southeast Asia, but they were pairing up lobster and smoke flavors, and in various areas of their culinary environments. And so we went about developing some seasonings around that, and were successful with a snack manufacturer that decided to launch it, and it was a very successful launch and in that particular area, and it still is in the market now. And I mean, this was really just the first time we've decided to look at, what are people blending these days? What are they talking about? Trying X in together with Y, and in what part of the culinary spectrum, and then we went about developing some seasonings around that. So I guess that's probably an example. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. And I can understand obviously why you can't be too specific. Anybody else wants to share? Even if you don't want to share, I can understand why you are hesitant.
No, I can maybe share a little bit, like the way that we use atoms or advanced tools for modeling is to really optimize food and flavor formulation. So we have been using that for many years across different categories. So One of the most recent examples is that we used Atom to optimize the juiciness of the taste of plant-based hamburgers, for example. But we are also using it to get to personalized citrus profiles, for example, for customers. So we use Atom a lot together with our customers. So it's usually like in a co-creation kind of process that we use Atom for new product developments. Yeah, so there's many examples like that we use that, but never the end product, right? Because we are still business to business. So it's really about a flavor with the taste and or like more like an integrated solution, but it will never be like the end product.
Thanks, Marika. That's a wonderful example of how we can use AI for flavor or ingredient creation.
So, can I share something from Cargill?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think one of the use cases that we had recently was when we traditionally we've been working very closely with our dairy customers in the region. Yeah, and in this case here we were focusing on Indonesia, right? In our customers in Indonesia, working with them on innovations, and so there was a thought that came out. Hey, should we be looking at plant-based yogurts in Indonesia, right? Presenting concepts and innovations in that direction. Is it too early, right? Or is it the right time for something like this? And we found that when we used AI here, it was very useful, right? The analysis that came back showed that it was far too early, yeah, for that particular category in Indonesia. It would have not been early in other countries, like for example in China or in Japan, but it was far too early in Indonesia. Yeah, and that helped us say, okay, maybe this is something that we could become interesting, but we'll park it for now. Yeah, and it helped us make that decision. And along that same I would say effort, we also looked at in just a general beverage category, the dairy beverages category, and so we say, which are the plant-based beverages that are trending at the moment in Indonesia? It's a big market, and where do we see this going? Yeah, and so the analysis revealed, top 3 ones, which some are a bit more mature, but some that are growing, and that allowed us to know at least if we hit one of these top 3, yeah, particularly the ones that were growing, it was going to resonate with our customers, yeah, and that helped us a lot with our customer interactions and their decision making as well.
That's a very beautiful example, because it talks about not only what would work in the market, but also you were able to identify what would not work at this point of time because the innovation would have been too early. Great examples. Now Daniel, you touched upon a little bit about the convincing of the stakeholders and getting them aligned in terms of for seeing and having AI as an organizational strategy. Can you talk a little bit about how you convince them about the value of AI?
Well, I guess, you beg, steal, and borrow in the beginning, and try to get sufficient support within your organization to adapt it. I think, look, the only way you're really going to get support is by proving it, right? By applying it in real time and hit some wins, get some traction, and nothing speaks louder in an organization than when business starts to move. And if we can prove it because it is of the information that we ultimately gained from the tool in conjunction with other aspects, then it gets traction very quickly. I guess the early days, it's really about understanding it in detail, so you can really answer all the questions and to ensure that the stakeholders get a clear picture. And there's a level of entrepreneurial skill in there. I guess you have to sell this internally, just like it depends on the organization. I can imagine in Marika's organization, which is heavily science-based, etc., that's probably slightly easier. But you know, in a traditional commercial environment, everything needs to have a return on investment. That's a fact of life. And so you need to spend a bit of time convincing the right stakeholders and push on and make sure you can, you know, chalk up some early wins to get that traction, for sure.
Yeah, so some early wins really helps in convincing the rest of the stakeholders that, yeah, we need to look at the technology.
Or your competitors' early wins can help too, if you can predict them, you see. And sometimes, you know, they'll listen to that much faster when they see the competitors taking off, right?
Right. Maria, how about you? How did you convince the stakeholders?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to Daniel's case. I think educating yourself, it's so important. You need to really understand what you're proposing to the organization, right? And the more everyone understands what we're trying to do, the easier it gets. So I think we invested on that at the beginning, on education, training, doing also a bit of knowledge mapping to understand what other industries are doing, how other, even far from, you know, food, how they're applying AI and understand, you know, their cases of success and how that can be transferred to our business, help too. And I think, to be honest, in Mondelez, we didn't have to do much convincing. Everyone was pretty on board. We have a lot of support from our leaders to move quick and be agile in this area. So that was good. And showing examples, maybe starting small, maybe taking some small risks first, and showing the results from it until everyone feels more comfortable to start expanding, you know, the use of a tool. Was our strategy, which, you know, worked. So I think very similar to Daniel's example.
Okay, so start with a small pilot, show that it works, and then roll it out organization-wide. Marika, how has been your experience?
Yeah, very, very similar. So indeed, start with the pilots and involve people. So make them part of the building team. That has been quite successful in our case. Also sharing best practices, celebrating success, I think is really important. And also sharing what is happening in the industry and kind of get that buzz around, you know, because everybody is working with AI, right? Like it's this magic word that is impacting a lot of businesses in this space in food and beverages. So sharing that, talking about it, discussing it, creating a buzz, I think is also important.
Right. Chick, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think very, very similar thoughts, but something different that I would add is that as we look at return on investment, you know, the technology does not come cheap, but as we look at return on investment, we asked ourselves, right, you know, what's the alternative, right? Is the alternative, you know, 3 marketing analysts, right, churning data and crunching data over time? What's their access to things? So we looked at these alternatives and said, you know, how does it compare? And, you know, versus our vision or our goal of deepening capabilities in terms of category and consumer insights. So for me, that comparison was very neat, right? And, you know, we were lucky enough to find a partner which AI partner which was able to, I would say, meet our return on investment. So for me, I think that was helpful. Yeah, and you know, with that, the convincing around and doing the rest of what everyone has said, right, around doing trials, you know, celebrating success, you know, looking at small wins, all those of course helped. We're very much early in our journey, to be very honest, because, you know, AI is early. So we are still evaluating, but, you know, it's certainly something that we're at least, you know, firm that we're going to try this for the next 1 to 2 years. Yeah, and going to optimize further and further.
Yeah. Thanks, Chick. And it's great to see a very pragmatic and practical approach when it comes to seeing what is the return on investment, what are the other options that you have in the market, and then making the decision about how you would proceed with that. There is another interesting question which has come up. So this is related to evaluating the tools. So the question is, what types of milestones/goals can you monitor during the learning phase? When evaluating the utilization of AI, some examples would be useful. Anybody would like to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I think you can apply that kind of like that early adopter model to this, to understanding and working with AI. So you always have a small group of people that are super enthusiastic and want to make it work. And then you have people that are a little bit resistant, or that don't really understand what it means yet. And those people you kind of have to convince to go from not like to like, maybe. Whereas your early adopters, they will be in that very enthusiastic phase in any case. Yeah, so it follows that model. It's like a like a typical kind of like early adopter change management model, I would say.
Thanks.
If that helps.
Thanks, Marike. Anybody else wants to take a stab? All right. So, yeah, Maria.
Yeah, I would just probably add that when you start applying an AI tool, maybe you still have to keep some of the traditional ways still there, right? And have that transition over. And because it is almost like a cultural change too in the organization. And as Merrick said, there's going to be people that will adapt to that faster than others. But you have to, I think, keep comparing and then kind of move out away from the traditional method when everyone feels comfortable about it. So you may have to give you that time to compare things for a while until everyone feels comfortable to just start using the AI method in replacement of the previous way of working. And to be honest, in some cases that process is very quickly, because we can quickly see the benefits, and all the digital agenda was really accelerated last year. So we saw that happening in many cases for us, that we passed that pilot stage and then final rollout real quick. And because again, and I feel the more you do, the more comfortable the whole organization feels, and it's just easier. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing the experience. So I'll ask the last question and then I'll directly go to the audience questions. So what do you think the industry will look like 10 years from now in 2030? So maybe we can start with Chick and then Daniel, Marike, and finally Maria.
Sure. Really hard question, but let me try to give a step. I think, the pace of innovation is going to get faster and faster and faster. Yeah. We'll see, I would say, as especially in Asia, more and more niche players, like what's happening in the Western world. And I think obviously the winners will be the ones that answer consumers best, the ones that are able to move quickly enough, with the consumer trends. Those are the ones that are going to be the winners here. Those will be my three things that I would share. I would predict.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Chick on all three. I think innovation will rapidly speed up, and a lot of niche players will be out there because they're nimble and flexible. And I think that's what the big guys are going to be dealing with. That's what's going to be hard. So the real innovation process from inception all the way through the product launch is going to have to become far more flexible and nimble for the big FMCG guys, because they're going to be up against a whole bunch of small guys who are going to be quick to market on this. So the consumer is being boiled constantly, and more and more and expects change very quickly and very rapidly. So, you know, I think gone are the days of 18 months development phases, etc. I think that'll be a thing of the past in 10 years time for sure. So yeah, I think it'll all contract in terms of innovation to end use application. Will become a very short journey.
Thanks, Daniel. Marika, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hard question. I think, you know, if you look at the entire industry, I think we're going to work much more in what I call ecosystems. So perhaps you wouldn't have anymore like the very big giants of players, but you would have much more project teams that work together and suppliers working together with customers, smaller teams, more agility, more flexibility. I think also that the digital tools will really, you know, really disrupt innovation and product innovation and product development. They will be used increasingly more. I think also we will be able to predict much better in the future what consumers want without them actually knowing it. So that and AI is going to play a big role there, I think. And also we're going to go a lot more virtual because we have all shown that we can do that. So, you know, what are the virtual alternatives to product development, to innovation, to co-creation? You know, that's going to go on a whole other cruise as well, I think. And personalizations, I would say that is another trend that I think is going to happen a lot more in maybe, you know, in the future. How can we personalize products for consumers with the help of digital tools and AI?
Thanks, Marika. And finally, Maria.
Yeah, I think what, you know, they've said, it's all very true. What I might just add is AI is going to be that part of your team almost, right? That can help you free up some of the time that we need to do things that we humans can do better. And I see that happening more and more in the future. So AI is going to help us augment, in a way, you know, the things that we do today. And I just see that happening even more and more. And I also agree it's going to be easier access, many players, many new innovations coming up. So I feel everyone needs to stay in that kind of pace of, you know, being open to that change because we see it happening really, really quickly. And in our case will be to you know, serve our consumers better, keep, you know, very close to what they need, and whatever help us, you know, achieve that will be what I guess we'll be doing in terms of, you know, using these technologies for that purpose.
Right, thanks. We have quite a few questions from the audience. Maybe I'll quickly ask them, and whoever wants to take it up, please do it. Would AI be able to help identify the flavor profile during analysis? Maybe this question is right for you, Marika.
Will AI be able to help
identify the flavor profile during analysis? And was it in lines with what you do with the VAS technology?
Yeah, with Atom, AI can help to get the samples to the consumer that consumer wants to smell. That is how AI can help. Yeah, and the consumer will. I saw another question here on the app, on the chat. Sorry, a consumer would not necessarily see the AI, so that's more that's more used in the background, right? It's used to get the right products to the consumer, or to understand from big data what the consumer needs and how they are evolving and what might be emerging needs. But the consumer wouldn't necessarily see the process or the AI itself. That's more used in the background.
Right, thanks for that. And in terms of ingredient innovation, has AI been used either in discovery of any new ingredient or application? So Daniel already shared one example in terms of the snacks. Anybody else wants to add?
Well, I think I'll add here. I think AI can be a good tool for tracking the reputation of an ingredient. Yeah, as we can see, there is a consumer trend towards cleaner label. Yeah, and in cleaner label, it's all about trust, simplicity, and ingredients which are recognizable to the consumer. And an example of that would be, carrageenan and seaweed powder. Yeah, and these are they're the same things, but to a consumer who's far from this, these have very different reputations in the market. Yeah, and so to that extent, I would say, AI can be used here to track, to monitor, to see how it's evolving, and of course, in new product development, help to make certain decisions around what ingredients to produce and what not to produce.
Thanks a lot, Chick. And with that, we come towards the end of the panel discussion. There has been a lot of data points that we can use in terms of adapting AI in our respective organization and look towards a future which is more digital and data driven. With that, I would hand it over to Jody to close it out.
So thank you, Som, for the fantastic moderation on today's session. And on behalf of SGInnovate, I also like to give special mention to all of our panelists, to Chick Liang, to Marike, to Maria, and Daniel for joining us today. It was very interesting to hear on the different perspectives on how AI can help with predicting of consumer trends for the different companies as we move together to innovate in a timely manner. For our attendees, sorry that we may not have been able to answer all of the questions due to time constraints, but we hope that you actually were able to cover the insights across the panel. Please keep a lookout for our post-event EDM, which will include an event recording of this session for you to share with your network who may have missed today's live webinar. We also hope that you continue supporting the rest of our knowledge sharing events at SGInnovate. We do hope to see you at our other events, and please have a great evening or afternoon ahead from wherever you're tuning from. Thank you and goodbye.